year round. So he couldn't do football anymore, he couldn't do soccer, he couldn't, all got to do baseball. Okay,
That's BS.
So did he do it? Did he do it?
yeah, he did, but you know. And the crazy thing,
Usually it's subtle pressure.
you
Like.
All right, guys, we are live, so watch what you say.
And the worst part about it is, sports, by concentrating on just one sport, you can wear yourself out. Then if you do other ones, that need different muscles.
How do you do?
Things like that.
Like in baseball, in particular, the arms. Never heard of Dr. James Andrews?
Sorry, you did.
But you had a good power. It was good. It was a really nice program. They started it. And Ed did, and Tony did. Yeah, he's been Terry Rankin. You go in his office, just pretty, informal, read it, in Birmingham. But I think everybody. Pepper. Posters.
Enough
that everybody felt good about it. I would say there were. Thanks for getting me back on your field. Yeah, folks. There was cool stuff. He was actually pretty retired. Yeah. Several of our officers. It's good. Fast.
We know.
Get the kids to the right place, yes. Both of them. They're seeing injuries with like little bit that they did not see because they never, their arms. And that was polished.
Singing like that.
It's parents.
Parents, I mean, that's been.
Yeah.
Conversations were.
But the parents don't know. That's where the pressure.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. That's right.
It's beyond insane.
That's not the only thing, but. Going anywhere fun?
Yeah, and usually with each one, we go back together.
Yeah, it's, trust me, that one ocean that did on these, it's like payback, totally not.
We're the only people
Oh,
on first side of the family that are alive.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here at 7:00. This is the May 15, 2023 regular meeting of the Prospect Kentucky City Council. I'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of April 17. Those have been distributed. Is there a motion?
I have one correction, if I can find it here. It said in the minutes that the ordinance 150 had a first reading. Was that corrected?
It did. Everybody voted an aye. You're still gonna have to do a first reading. That's.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right, is any other comments, corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Minutes stand approved. Comments from citizens? Has anyone signed up to speak, or does anybody have anything to say? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
At least for a month.
Okay. Mayor's report. So I've got a few comments. First, I'll note that on Sunday, April 30th, we had our first event in the new pavilion. It was Kentucky Shakespeare's production of Hamlet. And it was well attended and enjoyed by everyone who was there. The actors did a terrific job. We had hail, rain, wind, and cold, and sun. So we had a little bit of everything, but the show went on. They did a terrific job. A couple of folks left early because of the cold, but they said to me as they were departing, as I was coming back with a coat and 2 umbrellas from my car, they said how pleased they were with it, but that they didn't have the right clothes to stay in the cold weather. So I think everybody who attended was real positive about the event. It was the inaugural event in the pavilion. Based on the informal poll that I took of the council members, minus John Evans, we dedicated the pavilion in John's honor. It's the John Evans Pavilion. And an item on the agenda this evening is a resolution that would serve to ratify that informal action that we took. The second event was held today in the pavilion, and that was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. I want to thank Terry Rankhorn and Tony Denham, our Assistant Chief, for helping organize that. I thought we had a real nice event, a nice turnout. We had 4 FBI agents in attendance, 3 retired and 1 who's active that live here in Prospect. Several of our police officers were present. I spoke, Tony spoke, Terry Rankhorn spoke, and Mayor Evans spoke. So it was, and then we visited, we had cake, and I think it was well appreciated. The FBI agent Ragazzino, I think I'm saying her name correctly, is brought her little boy with her who's 20 months. And she took him over to the playground afterwards, and he enjoyed the playground. She went up. Oh yeah, he's a little bitty thing. And I talked to her, I said, I'm nervous about that top thing with the openings up there. And she said, I've got my eye on the opening. She went up with him and made sure that he was safe. So that event went very well. We'll be, another resolution we'll be considering this evening is to name the playground in honor of Sarah Odell, but name it for her daughter, Charlotte's Playground. So that'll be something we'll consider this evening. In follow-up to the April 17 meeting, you'll recall that a Sutherland resident spoke with us regarding a security light that was shining into her home. Tony followed up on that and met with the people back on an adjacent street. And I think the problem has been addressed and resolved. Okay, very good. Well, I appreciate that, Tony, and I know she does as well. The next item I'll talk about in the mayor's comments is the budget that's been presented, and these comments will be my budget message. I want to thank John Evans, Don Gibson, and John Carter for assisting me in putting the budget together. I'll add that they did not embrace every item that's in the budget. It's a budget that is my budget and sets out the priorities I believe are important for the city, but they provided candid and helpful comments. Further discussion with them after working on the budget has been helpful also. The May 8th special meeting we had 1 week ago today, I found to be helpful. I've reduced the amounts for the mayor's contingency fund and the emergency contingency fund in the proposed budget. The new amounts match those in the current budget. So I appreciated those comments and made adjustments accordingly. We spoke last week, and we've spoken at other times about the increases that we've faced and are facing in various expenses that we've got. The Greenscapes contract for our landscaping represented an 18% increase. And I think that's a three-year contract. Is that?
Two-year extension.
Okay, so it's a total of 4 years. So 18% is not year over year. It's 18% above what we'd agreed to 4 years ago. So it's significant, but not quite as drastic as it would be if it were 18% in 1 year. Rumpke likewise was a 4-year arrangement. They have advised us to expect a 25 to 30% increase in their bid. There will be other bidders. It's competitive bidding. So they proposed or suggested that we consider going to rolling carts, 65-gallon rolling carts for recycling, and that we move recycling to curbside. And there would be substantial savings in that if we do that, and at over $300,000 a year. And are also looking at going to every other week, bi-weekly, for pickup of recycling. So the savings that we anticipate realizing from that change will more than make up for the 25 to 30% increase that they projected. And of course, they're not going to be the only bidder. But what we found with the landscape bidding is the the bid that we got from a competitor from Greenscapes was comparable to the Greenscapes bid. And my expectation is that if we receive more than one bid for the waste service, that Rumpke's bid will be in the neighborhood of whoever else is doing this, because they're all dealing with the same labor costs, fuel costs, and that sort of thing. Other raises in our budgets have been, the current budget included 7% increases in salaries. The budget the year before that provided for a 2% increase. The budget that's being proposed this evening has got a 3% proposed increase in salaries. The challenge is that our revenues, certainly our revenues from real estate taxes, are flat. So that does present a challenge. The Rumpke change could help us quite a bit filling that hole. I've been working hard on cost savings with regard to our legal fees. We've negotiated new rates, substantially lower rates with our primary outside counsel. We've looked at their bills pretty closely, and they've agreed to remove some items from those bills. So I'll stay on top, try to stay on top of that so that we get the best service, but we get it at a price that's fair to the city. The police budget includes flock cameras, 4 additional flock cameras, which are the license plate reading cameras and are helpful with crime prevention. At the last Monday, Tony told us about the flock cameras that are available in the estates section led to the arrest of a gentleman who was working at one of the houses who had a felony warrant outstanding. So the license plate reader with the detail that can come from the information will tell you if there's an outstanding warrant on an individual associated with that license number, if the license plate is stolen, or if the vehicle is stolen. So it's pretty helpful information. So that's included in the new budget. Also included in the new budget is a new vehicle for the police department. I spoke with Tony about that, met with him and discussed that with him. And he explained the number of vehicles we have, that our vehicles are Fords and Dodges, and that they've got, after about 100,000 miles, the cost of maintenance begins to exceed, make that, it's not cost effective to continue with those vehicles much past 100,000 miles. And so they replace those on a sort of a rolling basis. And this year there'd be one new vehicle. The budget contemplates funds for sidewalk safety. We've completed the work, almost all the work in Harrods Creek on mitigating the trip hazards. So I think the sidewalks in Hunting Creek are safer. We've got sufficient funds, I think, to do 2 more neighborhoods in the coming year. And eventually over the coming years, we'll do all the sidewalks in all the neighborhoods. And anecdotally, I'll mention that since we've started this process, I've learned about another person who had experienced a trip and a fall in one of our neighborhoods and had some leg problems from that I think still linger. So it's a real, I think, a real concern. And I think this is important for the safety of our citizens. The parks budget includes funds for maintenance. It also includes funds for the bridge across the stream in Hunting Creek Park. The proposal is to borrow the funds from our surplus and to repay those funds over a period of 5 years. So it would be at $37,080 per year for 5 years. So this budget provides for, I think in a cost-effective manner, provides for our first priority, which is police and public safety. Our second priority is our basic services, and largely being waste management. And I think that for the reasons I've discussed, I think it does that well. Third priority that's addressed in here is parks and the continued investment in the improvement of our parks. So that we'll discuss the budget further on in the agenda, but I wanted to mention that in my report. And that concludes my report. Yeah. Yes, Chris has just shown me a note that the proposal from Rumpke does not affect the backdoor pickup of garbage or waste. That's not changed in this proposal. Also, Councilman Fulcher mentioned the importance of getting, I think Frank mentioned this, the importance of beginning to get the word out to folks if we're going to make changes in the recycling. And I've started that process. It was included in the newsletter that just went out, and I've received a comment back from a citizen about it. So I know at least some people are getting the word. It's something we'll address more. That's not the only notice we're going to get out, but at least we've started that process of educating our folks that that's a likely change they can expect. Okay, any other comments or questions about my remarks? If not, I'll ask John for a financial report.
The financials are through the end of April. And on April 30, our cash on hand was just over 3.3 million. And removing the pension obligations of 1.8 million, it still leaves us a surplus reserve of 1.5 million. Year to date, which is 3 months, we've earned 28,500 in interest on our CD investments. Revenues, 10 months in, equal $3.3 million. And our expenditures are at $3.6 million. The restricted road fund to date is now at 249,000. And nothing of concern other than our litigation costs, as I've mentioned in all our meetings here recently. And I'll take any questions.
Just want to point out that at $1.8 million, we have 5 months to go at a 360,000 average this year. And that gets us to almost zero, except for what we can expect from the insurance payments from now on. So it's extremely tight in September, and we don't have much of an operating reserve.
But the fiscal year is through the end of June, but you're talking about in the coming fiscal year.
On a cash basis,
Right.
by the time we get to mid-September, when we start receiving tax payments,
Right.
The well's almost dry.
Understand. Thank you. Okay. Other questions for John? If not, we'll move to the Forestation Board report.
The last month has been busy. It seems like they're always busy with trees. We completed the canopy tree planting, which was somewhat delayed by the weather, but it's all been done. And also there was a new Jordan Street oak puts into the exit area at Hunting Creek Drive, and that'll be a magnificent tree when it grows up. We had activity to Country Club with 2 problem trees. One was brought to our attention by the estate at Hunting Creek, but it turned out the tree was actually on the Hunting Creek Country Club property. It was really a significant tree in terms of hazard. It was very big, very old, and according to our arborist, could have fallen at any time in any direction, right near the 7th hole. Anyhow, the club agreed to take care of that right away. And they're also planning to deal with a decrepit pine that's along Hunting Creek Drive underneath the power lines. We drive along the road, you can't miss that particular tree. We had a lot of activity in Bridgepoint. We had a resident who complained really about stumps that were remaining from the unauthorized removal of 2 trees in front of the Bridgepoint Swim Club. We're still trying to address that issue. There was also an issue where a property on Old Creek Way wants permission to take out a declining pin oak. Andrea, our arborist, looked at that tree already, and she said, yes, it should go, and we're in the process of notifying the property owner. Another Bridgepoint issue is that there was a hazardous tree we identified on Newburgh Court, and that is being submitted as a remediation or removal order in progress right now. We had requests for assistance with MSD regarding some hazardous trees that are right along MSD drainage area at about 7102 Fox Harbor Road. Turns out that the drainage area is actually listed as owned by this decrepit Fox Harbor Corporation property that apparently went out of business years and years ago. But our arborist provided another contact to the property owners for the MSD work, and those property owners were already working with MSD. Looks like MSD will take care of that particular issue in the near future. We have continuing problems with the Bradford Pairs along Timber Ridge Drive, and we're working on a remediation request for 2 of those trees now. And we had a complaint about little plantings along the roadway on Fox Harbor Road, 7102 Fox Harbor. I looked at that site. There were no trees that were really involved in that. There are bushes, so I referred it to code enforcement. I don't know if there's any code violation or not, but I was glad it wasn't trees anyhow. And I wanted to mention, many have seen the latest city newsletter where there's a picture of flowering trees along Timber Ridge near River Road. That's a site that's seen by many people going to or from Kroger, the gas station there. Those trees in that picture look just great. Those were one of many forestation board projects over the years, and I wanted to credit Bonnie Kuhn, who's on our board, for taking that picture and writing that little article. And finally, I want to say that I'm going to be out of town in a lot of June, so Linda Knox will be taking over all the managing and reporting forestation board issues for that.
Thank you, Lee. Any questions for Lee?
Just one thing, Lee, you guys know far more than me about trees, or probably most things. But some years ago, before we moved to Prospect, we built an addition on a house, and Bradford pears were very popular.
Yes.
Because they quickly become very nice looking tree. Problem, of course, is you don't get the big trunk up the middle. They tend to, V and Y, and then split. What my wife and I were told at the time is the important thing is to keep them trimmed back on a regular basis. And if you do that, it'll be okay. And which we did. We never had any problems. Sold the house, we moved to Prospect, and stopped by there some years later. The Bradford pear obviously was much larger and it split. So just for people who, maybe we could give some advice to folks who have it, as to how they might be able to reduce the risk of that.
Well,
Just advice, not.
Andrea suggested replacement trees. She's really extremely knowledgeable. I'm just a guy on the forestation board, but Andrea knows a tremendous amount, and she's not prone to say, take a tree out. That's the last thing she wants to do. I've been with her many times where she says, well, let's wait till spring, see how that tree leaves out before we issue a request to take it down. We're going to address that some more.
I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that was our experience.
Yeah.
Maybe if somebody has a Bradford pear on their property and they don't want to take it out.
Yeah.
That maybe we could give them a little guidance.
She did list several replacement trees to be suggested to property owners, mainly along in the landings where there's a lot of them. But we can publicize that, maybe in the newsletter article would be great. I would also add that when the forestation board first started, we didn't have Andrea, but we were working a lot with the urban forester from Kentucky Department of Wildlife. 4th Street, and he suggested, and we did have it already, that we list Bradford's as not acceptable for future planning along streets. That's the only area where the forestation board has.
I have no issue with that.
Yeah, anyhow, that's kind of the situation, but we'll make sure that there's an article goes out suggesting replacements.
Okay.
Any further questions? Thank you, Lee. We appreciate it.
You're right.
Thanks to Linda also for her leadership. Other reports, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
Thank you. I'd like to just reiterate the comments by the mayor about the grand opening of the pavilion. I think it was a wonderful day. And I also want to commend the council for naming the pavilion after John Evans, because it was really his vision to create this gathering place that's just already been wonderful. I had someone tell me today that they celebrated Mother's Day with the kids on the playground. And I don't know if they brought chairs or tables or whatever, but they enjoyed the pavilion. They enjoyed the playground. It was great. And I've also noticed that the walkway that we put in between Fox Harbor Drive and the pavilion / playground area is really popular. I've seen a lot of parents with strollers coming down. Even at today's event, several people parked on Fox Harbor Drive like I did and walked along the sidewalk. So that's been a great addition to other Parks and Recreation programs. The second Wildflower Walk, which took place that was on the 16th, I think, but it was attended by about 25 residents. It wasn't as picture perfect a day. It was a little bit cool and windy, but the rain held off and a lot of people enjoyed seeing the later blooming wildflowers. And I think I might have mentioned in my written comments to the council that we're working at ways to make it better, maybe breaking the group into smaller groups so it's easier for participants to hear about the wildflowers. I'd like to note that the second program in the pavilion will take place this coming Sunday, May 21st at 7 p.m. and it features the Ron Jones Quartet, which is a jazz group. I had someone comment to me today that they really appreciated that the musical offerings that are coming up in the next few months have a variety of styles. And I think I commend the program committee for making sure we've got a variety of things that will appeal to different parts of our community. And a flyer with details of the concert series has been hand delivered to Prospect residents. Ron has come up with a great colored poster that Carolyn Embry has placed in a lot of our local businesses. We put posters in the information kiosks at the parks too. So we're really trying to get the word out so that this concert series can be enjoyed by all of our citizens. The other program that we've got in the works is one originally designed for children, but it's open to everyone, and that will be a craft for all on June 17th. That's the day before Father's Day at 10 a.m. in Little Hunting Creek Park. We're going to create tie-dye t-shirts. And this is for people of all ages, and I plan to have my t-shirt there and do a tie-dye. The only thing you need to bring is a t-shirt that's at least 50% cotton. And if you are allergic to latex, bring your own gloves, but we will have all of the other equipment and supplies that are needed for that event. And once again, that's kind of spearheaded by Sally Snyder, who's a member of our Parks Committee, and her cousin, Lauren Becker, who is just a wonderful artist. The mayor mentioned the Harrods Creek Bridge project. We did receive some bids last Friday. We're going to be reviewing them with our consultant at the end of this week. And hopefully we'll be able to make a decision about moving forward on that. We've also, if you've noticed, the tree stump near the pavilion that's about 10 feet tall, we have engaged a chainsaw artist to create a sculpture. And the theme of the sculpture, we wanted something that kind of tied into Prospect, and it's right next to Fox Harbor Drive. So it's going to be a sculpture of a mama and a papa fox and a couple of little kits. And I think I included in the packet a picture of the design, and everyone that we've showed it to has really enjoyed that. And I think it'll be great. Our artist comes very highly recommended. He's done a lot of work in this area and beyond. So we're hoping he can get to it in June. That schedule's a little iffy depending on other work and weather. So I'll keep you posted. And I'm also going to talk with the artist about whether he's okay with people coming and watching him work. I know that he talked, when he spoke with Ron and me, he mentioned that he does a lot of workshops and exhibitions. So I don't think he'll have I don't think he'll have a problem with people coming to work at a safe distance, or coming to watch him work from a safe distance. And the only other thing I have to add is that we do have a scout who is interested in building an information kiosk for Little Hunting Creek Park as their Eagle project. And that will, it takes a while for the scouts to get their project written up and approved and materials ordered and all of that. But the plan is that by the end of the summer, we will have an information kiosk, and we'll work with Ron and others to make sure the location is something that's appropriate. Near the pavilion, near the playground, very much obvious, where we can put all kinds of city notices for people to see when they visit the park. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Linda. Any questions for Linda?
You mentioned a consultant is going to review the bids. Who's the consultant?
That's OHM Advisors. Steve Emily is the lead on that. And that was the group that put together the original bid package, worked with us to identify style, the bridge that we wanted. Steve also he was a former chief engineer for MSD and was very much involved in the project when we turned the former MSD land over to the city for Harrods Creek Park. So he's very familiar with the area. Has done a lot of work.
Any other questions for Linda? If not, thank you, Linda. We appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Tony, police report.
Sorry, I'd say thank you again for having that event out at the John Evans Pavilion. That was fun. And the officers really appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for doing that. I'll follow up on a few things that I kind of talked about last meeting. The vehicles, as far as locking the cars, different things, leaving keys in the vehicles. Probably should not have spoke about that last meeting because it immediately happened right after the meeting. As I've kind of talked to you guys about, the things that have been going on around us, a lot in Norton Commons, out in Oldham County. They hit Bridgepoint and another vehicle in Fox Harbor and one in Sutherland's. And that was actually the night of thunder. Most vehicles are having the keys out. And that we did use the flock cameras. When they steal our vehicles, they're using them in other crimes. They're taking mostly the West End. One of the vehicles that was taken from up in Bridgepoint ended up out in Shepherdsville, involved in other crimes. So they're taking them all over. But we are able, which is the great thing about Flock, to monitor where those vehicles are. And if you left your keys in your vehicle and you tell us you didn't, we'll know you did because the vehicle's still running. We see it on Flock. So just let us know ahead of time. Please let us know ahead of, because it won't keep running. As far as transponders, and I know this actually had, this question has come up. They do have things they can use to hook to the transponder that starts your vehicle. But it'll only start it at your house. It won't start it once it leaves out of this area. So that's when we kind of know that the keys are actually left with the vehicle. All three were recovered. So Mike McKeon did a great job of working on that. He has a great relationship with other departments, which gives us a great relationship with the other detectives to get information. So we did get all those back with minimal damage, which is the best part. To follow up on our pharmacy burglary over here that we had, it's about a month ago, whenever that happened. I will say ours is one of the few that has not gotten hit again. Very few. It's the same MO over and over. They're getting some of the liquid drugs that they use to mix their drugs. That's exactly what they're looking for. That ring has went as far as Glasgow, Kentucky. So they've not got caught. We think we've identified who actually is involved in it. We're pretty sure. We're working with the FBI a little bit on it. Glasgow was working on a case where they're setting up, trying to get cell phone information from here. They did not, they're very good. They did not have cell phones on them. So we can't geofence it and find out who was using their phones during that time. We're trying to use another tower out of Glasgow. That detective's taking the lead on that. So we're working that pretty hard to kind of keep an eye on that. But I'll give credit to the guys, but they've worked that really hard, keeping an eye on that. It's not been hit again. And we have a good relationship with that business over there, and they do everything they can to try to help us out. The last thing real quick I'll talk about is a scam, which really gets under my skin because it targets elderly and a lot of our elderly people in our community. We actually sent out an email blast from this last month. It's the first time we've been targeted a few times before. It's happened, but they're using the Prospect Police as the guys to get into talking to people in the community. They used one of our officers who retired. They used his name. They actually used the chief's name, actually, in some of these scams. I'll read it verbatim so you can kind of hear what they're telling people. They identified themselves as a Prospect police officer and advised the resident that he or she had missed a court date in federal court and needed to send $3,000 to Venmo digital wallet or they would be arrested. As you can understand, for an elderly person, that's pretty frightening. And we did not have anybody that did any of that because we wanted to send that email blast out. And with somebody who has spent hours upon hours fixing their parents' stuff where they got scammed, I'm a little sensitive to this right now, so it drives me crazy. But I want, please let everybody know if they have any questions at all. We have a lot of our elderly get scammed, and it's ridiculous. But if they have any questions, you tell them to call up here. Before they send one dime to anyone or call a number back, you tell them to call up here and we will go to their house. I don't care where it is. We will go to their house and help them. But if you have anybody in your family, if they ever want to just call up here and ask us about it, please have them call up here before they get scammed. Because it causes a ton of problems for a person financially down the road, or it can. Last thing I'll run over real quick, to update you guys, Jill was involved, our secretary was involved in an accident last Wednesday. She was already having a tough time physically with some different things that she's had going on. She had a compound fracture of her tibia right up here on the expressway. Me and Officer Manning made the run that night. She had a broken rib, chip bone in the back. She had surgery Friday to fix the tibia. She'll probably go into a rehab facility for a little while. But just keep her in your prayers. Just kind of think about her. And if you call up, if we're in the office, Jill will not be answering. So a lot of people are so used to calling and talking to Jill or house watches or different things, but just know she's going to be out for a little while. And I'll take any questions at all. What's that?
Any questions for Tony?
Tony, I noticed.
Yes, sir.
We have 18 citations, warnings under traffic.
Which, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I saw 18 citations / warnings issued under for traffic violations.
Right, yeah, and I think there's actually been a few more on that. Jill's been out a little bit, and they've not all been tracked. Are you saying you wonder about the amount of it or whatever?
No, I was going to applaud your efforts.
Oh, okay, that's what I was saying. I think there are even more. Honestly, I do. they're writing multiple a day. And a lot of times, and to be frank, our guys have a lot of experience. They know when to write a citation, when to write a warning. You almost make a friend when you write a warning and you have the same impact. Our residents are starting to kind of get the idea that we're out enforcing some of those things. We move the machine around at different times and the guys do a fantastic job. So I appreciate you saying that, but it's more than that. But they do a great job. They really do.
It's been noticed.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yes,
Credit,
I've heard
credit
of
to the
it.
guys. Yes, sir.
Excuse me. You have an Airbnb questions. What was it?
That may be something that Rick had. I saw that before I came down. I don't know exactly what's going on with that, but I will find out.
I've heard and seen that there, VRBO has
Mhm.
several.
I'll ask Rick about it and I apologize. I just don't know about it, but I will find out.
Okay.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, new business. The first item of new business is the application from Gustavo's for preliminary approval of the detailed building plans that they submitted. On Friday, Don Gibson, John Evans, Chris Gorman, John Carter, and I met with Wes Johnson, who's the builder for Gustavo's, and carefully went through our ordinance, the things that ordinance requires. And there are actually a couple of steps that they've got to take. Gustavo's has got to take before the building plans can be considered by council, and council can make a decision on issuing the preliminary approval. So it's on track. And I think we had a good meeting with Mr. Johnson. He seemed very appreciative. And he and I actually emailed later in the day and he expressed again his appreciation. So we'll stay in touch with him and try to keep that moving forward. Next item of business is approval and adoption of the Forestation Board's 2023-2024 City Tree Plan as the City of Prospect's official comprehensive tree plan. That was in the materials that were distributed. Is there a motion to approve that tree plan? So moved. Mr. Holmes has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have an item here that, if I can find it, it's in the first paragraph where it says, it's all encompassing, and it says the city and other areas. And that's, I don't think that's I think the other areas should be omitted from that particular, because Forestation Board deals with the city.
City. Yeah. In the objectives and goals, the first sentence refers to sustaining forestation within the city and surrounding area.
Yeah, the surrounding area.
Yeah.
I question that. That's outside of our purview.
Seems like a fair comment. Lee, do you have any problem if we strike the word "and surrounding area" from the
No, that's fine.
tree plan as submitted? Right? Any further discussion or comments? Sir, anything? If not, are we ready to vote on the tree plan as amended? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the tree plan as amended is approved. Thank you, Lee, for that.
I was in the meeting with Wes Johnson too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ron was there. My apologies.
It's not a big deal.
Appreciate you reminding me. And my apologies for leaving you off the list. Okay, the next item is the resolution dedicating and naming the pavilion in honor of John Evans. That's been distributed. Is there any, I guess first, is there a motion to approve the resolution, which will have the effect of ratifying the action that we already took informally?
So moved. Second.
Come on, try and make up your mind. One of you is gonna be quicker than twice.
The chair will rule on this dispute. Mr. Poulter made the motion. Mr. Grader seconded the motion.
And it was an honor to do.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Very good. Now we've made official what we had done unofficially, and the pavilion is named in honor of Mayor Evans. We appreciate everything you did, John, with regard to the park and everything else.
The record show that he didn't vote.
He didn't, I don't believe Mayor Evans voted on the motion that was just voted on by the council.
Didn't say a word.
Okay. Then the next item is the resolution dedicating and naming the children's playground as Charlotte's Playground. That was in the materials sent to council members. Is there a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
That was Mayor Evans made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Sarah Hines seconded the motion. Any discussion? If not,
Yeah, I agree.
then all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? That motion is adopted. Thank you. The next item is a first reading of an ordinance setting the ad valorem tax rate. That's been circulated.
No.
Did I skip something?
Yep.
Sorry. 150. Oh, okay. This is the ordinance, this would be first reading of an ordinance relating to the amendment and modification of chapter 150, building regulations of the code of ordinances of the city of Prospect. It's on the agenda for a first reading. Is there a motion to give that ordinance a first reading?
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Fulcher moved, Mr. Holmes seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor of the first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Don, would you give the first reading?
City of Prospect Ordinance 623, Series 203, an ordinance relating to the amendment and modification of Chapter 150, building regulations of the Code of Ordinance for the City of Prospect. Whereas Chapter 150 establishes a code of building regulation. That's all you need. I think this is to kind of shore up and clarify the ordinance in terms of brick and aesthetics that's applicable.
Okay, so that's the first reading. Thank you, council, and thank you, Mr. Gibson. Now we turn to the first reading of ordinance 624, series 2023, an ordinance establishing an ad valorem tax rate for the city of Prospect for the coming fiscal year. Is there a motion to give that ordinance a first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no nay votes. John, would you give first reading?
City of Prospect ordinance number 624, series 2023, an ordinance establishing an ad valorem tax rate for the city of Prospect for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30, 2024.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the budget ordinance for the proposed budget. This will be the first reading of the budget ordinance. Is there a motion to give the budget a first reading?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor Evans made the motion. Sarah, did I hear a second?
Yeah, second.
Is there discussion?
Yes, I'll repeat myself. I think that the council needs a budget line item. If that's not the case, if the council does not have some money available to do the things that the council needs to do their job, then essentially what we're doing is making the checks and balances or the mayor council form of government disappear. It becomes dictatorship's a little harsh word, but to go to a seminar, you have to go to to the mayor to ask for money, he could say, I don't have the budget. Theoretically, the council, well, not theoretically, actually, the council has a right to change a budget to put money in. But then the mayor also has the right to veto something he disagrees with. The separation of powers of the two government entities needs to be established, and you cannot do that without some funding for things that the council feels are necessary to do their job. So a line item, would like to see a line item for $20,000 for council expenses. And David asked a little while ago, asked me, well, how would you do that? I think that how would you administer such a budget line item? And the easy way to do that is strictly by just a motion in council to say, okay, Frank would like to go to so-and-so to a seminar on something relative to the council's position. And then the council would say, sure, A or nay, but not the mayor, because it may be something that the mayor policy basis disagrees with. And I don't think that that's the way the system is set up.
Frank, I think I disagree with you, but I haven't researched it. My feeling is that the council sets the budget, but the mayor does the spending. So I'm not sure they can do what you've talked about. But I'll be glad to research it, and I'll have an answer for you by the next meeting.
But Chris, Metro operates that way. I mean, Metro has their own lawyers. They have their own, each Metro council member has its own funds.
Okay, well, let me look at it. My understanding is that the mayor is the chief executive officer and as such does the spending.
I agree with that 100%.
Well, you say you have to go back to the council for approval. I think the mayor is the chief executive officer and it's his call, I believe, but well, let me research.
Well, I didn't say that though, Chris.
Let me just say, I certainly don't have any problem with the idea of council members attending seminars or having the books they need to do their jobs. I'll do whatever I can to facilitate that. If it's permissible for the council to have funds separate and apart from what I can do, if that's permitted, I wouldn't have any problem with attending seminars or purchasing books or that type of.
Conducting surveys. There are a number of things the council may disagree with the mayor.
Sure.
On a policy basis.
Sure.
That they shouldn't have to go to the mayor to say, can I do something you disagree with?
Yes, I think the pertinent statute is 83A 130. It says the executive authority rests solely in the mayor, and also says in a different subparagraph, the legislative body or the members of the legislative body are prohibited from doing executive things. I'm not trying to argue one way or the other here. I'm just saying that's where, if I were researching this, that's where I'd start.
Let's see what.
So
Oh, go ahead.
I'm not going to prejudge our city attorney reviewing this, but all the cities that I've worked in, councils have had separate line item amounts that they control. And the concern I had and discussed with Frank was, what would be our procedure? We have to have some kind of procedure, and all the other council people would have to agree to it. I don't want to fund a slush fund that's being used for, whatever. Certainly seminars and books and things of that nature are very legitimate. But in Cincinnati and in Lexington, council had funds that they were able to do. Now, the administration administered, I think you would consider how the funds were dispersed
after the council agreed on the use of the funds, but there was a line item amount for council usage.
Well, it's a good,
Okay, we'll look at it.
yeah, it's a good discussion. Let's let Chris do his thing and we can amend the budget at the next meeting if that's appropriate. And it sounds like we've got agreement on the types of things that these funds might be used for, or at least general agreement. And we can explore it further and I think hopefully come up with a system that's everybody can appreciate and use.
Well, let me ask, are you talking about putting in the line item a specific thing that it should be spent for? Like going
No.
to seminars or
No,
or just?
I'm not talking about that. I think there's a fund. There's funds at the council's disposal to use things as the year goes on.
Well, let's get results of whatever you find, Chris, and we can talk about it and get ready for the next meeting. So it's a good discussion. Is there further discussion on the motion, which is to give a first reading to the budget?
I've got another item.
Sure.
Line item, and it's with the percentage increase. It's an across the board increase, as I understand it.
Salary increase?
Yes,
That's correct.
that's correct. Well, I don't think that's the approach that this council needs to take without seeing a baseline for the salaries compared to other equivalent positions throughout the state. Because we went through this for you. I went through it 4 years ago. The KLC has a survey that says what mayors make in all the small cities, what city clerks make. And if you start exponentially increasing without understanding what the baseline is, I'm not saying 3% is good or bad or 5% is good or bad. I'm saying of what? 3% of what are we doing compared to what the rest of the world is doing?
And I think former council member Hulsman and former council member Leonard, I believe they actually did survey other cities and got quite a bit of data that they presented to us. And I imagine that information from last year is available either in our minutes or we'd be able to retrieve that. But I think that survey's been done by members of this council, previous
Oh, yeah.
council. And
It has, and KLC is a very good baseline
Yeah.
because it goes through every city in the Commonwealth. And the variation is just unbelievable.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's,
Well, I think it
so
also.
what I'm asking is that before we vote on a salary increase, that we get that baseline data so we can make an informed decision.
Okay. All right. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, it begs the question, what basis was the 3% increase made on?
Well, the 3% proposal is based on the discussion that I've heard is, do we do 2% or do we do 3%? Inflation's currently 4.9% on an annualized basis. I believe I've got that right. So it's that's the basis that was used in coming up with that. The other thing that's a reality is that with our police, we're in a competitive employment situation where our officers are approached by other departments. One officer has left and returned to Louisville Metro where he had previously been an officer. I don't feel we're at risk for an exodus, but I think this is to meet, and we're not going to match Metro Louisville. We're not going to match Oldham County. We're not going to match the city of LaGrange. But the question is, how far behind are we going to be, and how competitive are we going to be, and what is a very competitive market for police officers? City of Louisville is down 300 officers, as we learned, and it's not investigating property damage crimes as a result.
But I understand with police officers, but the 3% is across the board with everyone. And it's really not 3%. The numbers say it's 3.7%. 3% is like 31,000 and you've got 38,000, 39,000 in there. So it's well above 3%. And it follows last year where we did a 7% raise, again, across the board for everyone. And the average increase last year was 4.6%.
For government, in government.
Yeah, I think the president wanted to do 5.2%,
So that's
but it
federal-
ended up 4.6%.
Federal employees.
No, total, everyone, 4.6%. And the notion of raising salaries to try to keep up with inflation, I think that, you know, the price of eggs in January was $5.78 on the wholesale market. Last week it was 78 cents. And so the point is things fluctuate a lot. Healthcare costs go up, but I don't think healthcare costs go up for the city, but I don't know that they go up for the employees. If you have a mortgage, if you have a car, inflation doesn't bother you as much. Last year, gasoline was $5. This year it's $3.50, except over here. But it seems to me we were well above the curve last year, and we're kind of going to, I understand the police, keeping the police, but doing it across the board for everyone. Normally in organizations, there's distinctions in salary increases based upon performance and official duties, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, those are good.
So I just think, I think we're overdoing it.
I think we separate the police from the other categories, because I think no question, you know, that's our marquee advantage here in Prospect, and we want to keep the good people we have. And if we have to be more competitive, if it takes more money, the benefits I think are pretty good. So I think we need to segregate those, and I'm not a fan of across the board anything in an organization.
Those are good comments. Is there further discussion?
Like to give the employees all we can. We're coming into a situation where fixed costs are going up and salaries, you know, you give $39,000, that's $39,000 continuous, it's cumulative. And our fixed costs are going up, but our revenue is not.
Right.
And we're going to have to address that issue. We've talked about where our reserves are. They're 3.3 now.
Our reserves were 1.8.
Well, we talked the total.
Well, that's the total funds on hand. We reserve 1.8 million by ordinance.
I understand that.
The other surplus.
I'm talking about we had in our reserves 3.3 million.
We
Right?
have $3.3 million. 1.8 is reserved. The balance is
I
surplus.
understand that. But by the end of the year, if we spend to the budget, we'll have about 2.7 million. So, you know, in light of our costs going up and our income flat, we're just getting a little light on reserves. We're also proposing a $1.8 million bridge project. We're going to take $35,000 or $37,000 out of reserves for a year, but we're all going to spend it up front here. And so I think we're getting our reserves compressed, and I'm not sure that's a prudent thing to do.
Those are good
What's
comments.
this 1.8 for a bridge?
He made 180,000.
180,000 per bridge.
I think those are good comments and valid consideration for the council to take into account. So I appreciate that.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
This is a related but separate issue. I think it's really important that we work hard to explain to the residents what the deal is that we're with our revenue under state law. I think a reasonable person who hasn't been really involved in any of this would assume that we have a lot more flexibility than we do, or that our property tax revenue would go up with increasing appraisals, just the way the school board. And yeah, when actually it doesn't. It's kind of a strange bear when the state greatly restricts the benefit we get from much of anything, except it doesn't help us on the other side as far as our costs.
Yeah, the statute, as I understand it, so appraisals go up in Prospect, the property value administrator says, okay, your house is worth 20% more than it was a year ago, or the last time we appraised it. Our tax revenues don't go up because of that. The state statute puts it back down to the current revenue level. So that's a very important point, and it's one we do need to educate folks on.
The Kentucky League of Cities is trying to lobby the legislature to make changes for local governments to allow them to have more flexibility in budgeting issues, because exactly what Mr. Rader said. So problems that occur.
Helpful comments. The motion is to give a first reading to the budget ordinance. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll ask for yeas, nays. All in favor of giving a first reading to the budget, please say aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so let's do a roll call vote because of the division in the yeas and nays. So we'll start with you, Frank.
Nay.
Nay vote. Mr. Grader.
Yay.
Mr. Holmes.
Yay.
Mayor Evans.
Yay.
Gibson.
Nay.
Nay. And Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay, so first reading is approved by a vote of 4-2. Mr. Evans, would you
All right,
give us the first reading?
glad to. City of Prospect ordinance number 625, series 2023. An ordinance establishing the budget for the general fund of the city of Prospect for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30, 2022.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance 626, series 2023. An ordinance establishing the municipal road aid fund of the city of Prospect for the coming fiscal year. Is there a motion to give that ordinance a first reading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Fulcher moved and Mr. Gibson seconded. Is there discussion? If not, are we ready for a vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. So the first reading is approved. Frank, would you give the first reading for that?
I just tucked it over there.
Uh-oh, sorry.
Somebody else have it in front of them. Okay. Ordinance 626, series 2023. An ordinance establishing the municipal road aid fund of the city of Prospect for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending July 1, 2024.
Ending June 30, 2020.
It should be June 30.
Right.
Yeah.
On the ordinance, it is correct. Yeah. Just wasn't correct on the agenda, apparently. All right, so that first reading's been completed. That concludes our agenda. Is there any further business to come before the council? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned.